uneasy, right? But again, like God has put me in a different path, and that path is going to entail for me to take care of myself and to love myself and to be in the best situation that I can thrive as someone who's been through all the things that I've been through.
It's kind of something you can't explain.
Yeah, you can't. The real thing is like, I don't like to fail at anything,
Me either. I
and
don't want to lose. I don't want to
I don't
fail.
want to fail,
I don't want
especially when I know what,
you've poured in.
right. And, as I said across from you, like I can only be responsible for myself,
True.
and I can only do um, what I can do, right? And I
Right.
can't expect someone else to do what I'm doing.
But did you go to therapy with her?
Yeah,
Okay, that's good.
right,
So you actually addressed it,
right.
tried to work through it,
Mm,
tried to do the work,
mm,
and it just was like not happening.
you know,
Well, then shit, you tried.
yeah.
I don't know about for you, but
Well, hey guys, welcome to Little Black Book. Another one. We're talking to you guys obviously about Jeezy and Jeanni Mai. I've been following this story for the last few months, and the breakup has been really intriguing because there's so many different narratives that have been spun and so many things that haven't been said. But I feel like we've got some answers that actually will help solve the issue between Jeanni Mai and Jeezy. It's very rare, or should I say, it's more rare to see a man divorce a woman or put in the proceedings for a divorce. And I don't think there was any cheating. I genuinely believe what happened in this relationship was about people being triggered. The video I did a few months back was on Jeanni Mai talking about her anger and her temper. And actually, when you listen to the interview, and I'm going to break it down, I'm going to show you, he actually speaks about his mother and speaks about the kind of mother that he had. His mother was abusive. All right. No, she had a very hot mouth. Okay. And she was abusive to him emotionally. She pulled a gun out on him at one point. Okay. All right. There was emotional neglect in the aspect as well. So there was a lot of abusive behavior from his mother, toxic ways of going that he had to try and forgive her and is still in the process of trying to forgive her. Well, what is the chances of him then ended up with someone like Jeanni Mai, who then is struggling with anger, temper issues, and he labels that when he sees her as spicy. In fact, he actually labels that in the interview as his mother having a spicy mouth. There's nothing spicy about it being emotionally abusive with your mouth, but he labeled it that. So I'm not surprised that the woman that he ends up dating is non-black and also has a quote unquote spicy mouth too, right? And you start and engage in a relationship until you realize she's doing the very things that your mother was doing verbally and emotionally, and it triggers you. That's number one. Number two, they mentioned quickly about women and leadership and whether they want to be led. There was a part where our good sis spoke about leadership, and he said, "Do women want to be led?" And I was like, wait, Jeezy, you know women want to be led. You know that. So why did you question that? Because that is one of the reasons why him and Jeanni Mai also break up, because one of the issues was about the parents, the mother and his brother moving into the home, her not listening about the children and not being protected. We heard from Jeanni Mai how she disrespected her ex-husband because he wasn't a leader in his own home. She was the leader, right? So he had another issue with Jeanni Mai, which is leadership. And I think what he realized was, hold on a minute, I'm repeating the same cycle of me and my mother. I couldn't stand up to my mother. I'm going to stand up to Jeanni Mai. I'm going to exit the relationship. All of this is based around trauma. Jeanni Mai is not the only problem in this relationship. He's a problem too, because anybody who's been through an abusive parent usually has poor boundaries. They don't know how to speak up for themselves. They can become passive aggressive in the way they move as well. So there are several reasons why this relationship broke up and a divorce is impending on their situation. And we're going to break it all the way down for you guys. So stick around. We're going to provide the evidence for you guys to see how this affected their relationship, but also how this can affect your relationship. Because if you've been through something similar as much as Jeanni Mai and as Jeezy, then you're going to need to understand where both of them are coming from to understand where you are going in your relationship or where you're going in future relationships. It's time for change. If you're new to the channel, do me a massive favor. We like to entertain and educate here as well. We're trying to get to 100K, so please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe to our membership as well. We want you guys to also be a part of the team. It's £1, $1, and we love to hear that you're a part of this family and engaging and loving the content as well. And don't forget, we also have a Patreon out there as well. There's a link in the description box. Join the Discord. You want to talk about TV shows, all that kind of stuff is there. And as you can see on the top of my head, Mineral Gang, get involved with the merchandise. It's getting cold. Brr. Okay, let's get into this. For those of you who are returnees, we know what it is, baby. You got the minerals. You got the minerals. Let's get into this video. Let's talk a little bit about this Jeezy situation. And let's start at the very beginning. I want to give some background because I think this is important, right? So one of the things that's really key is that Jeanni Mai also spoke about her background in another video, which I did previously. Go look for that as well. I spoke about her background. Her mother didn't believe her about her sexual abuse claims. Look, there's a lot of trauma bonding, I think, was happening between Jeanni Mai and Jeezy. He went through sexual abuse when he was young. She went through sexual abuse when she was young. Okay. All right. They both had mothers who were incoherent when it came to their needs emotionally. Another point of bonding over trauma, right? Jeezy saw a lot of trauma in terms of someone shooting their wife and, you know, violence on the streets and stuff like that. There's a lot of bonding that was happening from their independent selves because both of them are guarded individual people. And so we're going to break this down all the way. Let's go to the very beginning because he speaks about this trauma. And I think that will definitely set a tone for where we are in this conversation, okay? The very first kind of trauma that he sees is someone being shot. And I think that is where we should start. Let's go.
Yeah, we got to hide.
Yeah.
And
But why did you know to hide?
because I had been around that before growing up. So I went and climbed under the sink in the bathroom and hid. And I heard some yelling and all I heard was,
He killed the wife?
he didn't kill her. He shot her like 4 times.
Oh my God.
Right. And he ran, left us there. My mom and dad came looking for me. Eventually, they found me under the sink when the police and everything was there. But I just, they just stuck with me, right? And before I was 8, I had already accepted this is the norm, right? I was already desensitized.
At 8.
Now, first things first, is straight away what he's led there is at 8, he's already desensitized. And what that means, desensitized, means you separate yourself from your emotions and you separate yourself from reality, right? Or the things that are going on around you. You disassociate. And that's actually one of the trauma responses when you've gone through trauma. One of the ways that people end up coping, especially men, is to disassociate from what has happened in their past. And so they almost become numb to very distinct, dangerous, painful events in their life, and they either laugh about it or they talk so matter of fact about it that there is no emotion in what they speak about. And yet you're looking at going, you just really went through something mad. Yeah, it is what it is. Right. And that in a sense makes it difficult when you get into when you get into relationships, romantic relationships, because they require emotion. They require you to be in tune with your emotions. They require emotional regulation. You see, the reason why somebody disassociates from trauma is because there's a lack of ability to be able to regulate yourself emotionally. And if you couldn't do that as a kid, when you get older, it's also further exasperated because there are going to be many situations that are going to require your emotional response. And what will end up happening is you'll end up responding logically, or someone might say logically, quote unquote. You might respond without much emotional understanding of the situation, meaning the situation will have no nuance. It becomes very black and very white. And the trouble with that is dealing in romantic relationships, it's not black, it's not white. It oftentimes is gray, and it requires a nuance of emotional understanding where the other perspective is coming from. This is what makes relationships very difficult. So you can't disassociate in a relationship. That's the first part. So at 8, he's already got some trauma he's already dealing with. Let's go a little bit further on and talk about the fact that again there were some other issues in there too, because his brother also died young.
Right.
Yeah. Because nothing felt safe.
Right.
Do you have siblings at this
My
point?
brother died when he was younger.
What did it do to your mother?
I mean, my mother had a very toxic relationship.
You and your mom?
Yes. My sister's my little sister.
Yeah.
Right? But I call her my little big sister because she's probably the only person that can talk sense into.
My relationship with my father was probably very.
Now let's talk about this straight away. First and foremost, he talks about the fact that his mother's relationship was toxic. We're gonna get deeper into it. the mother that he had was toxic in the relationship he had, right? This is really important because it's going to tell us a little bit about what's probably going to happen to him in his future life, right? A toxic mother is going to end up creating trust issues in relationships, boundary setting issues, anger, low self-esteem, self-destructive behaviors are going to be coming out as a result of an abusive mother and usually an abusive parent in general, right? But let's just take it as a mother, right? And a son. Trust issues, right? You're now guarded. This is going to come up later on. Listen, pay attention because it's going to come up later on. I'm going to provide a video for you. Trust issues, boundary setting issues. This is going to come up later on because he has issues with when he was helping some of his brethren in certain situations. They didn't respect him when he helped them out. For instance, he told a story about going to jail, and paying for everybody's bond, and nobody checked on his wife and nobody checked on his kid. Oh, checked on his mom and checked on his kid. Sorry, not his wife. Right? Boundary setting issue. You have poor boundaries with people, right? Anger. He spoke about this, that he feels angry. He's an angry black man, he said, right? Low self-esteem. Now, he didn't really talk about that too tough. Most people don't like talking about that. But the reason why you have those trust issues, boundary setting, anger, and all that kind of stuff, and how you deal with relations, and it keeps going wrong, oftentimes is a critical foundation is low esteem, okay? And self-destructive behaviors, self-sabotaging, doing things that are not going to be aiding of your journey as well, all right? That's what's a result of having an abusive mother, usually an abusive parent, but that's going to play on it, right? Let's play a little bit further on because, again, he's going to talk about his mum and what she did to him. And I think this is going to really open your eyes to how young boys are going to be affected.
14 maybe?
Yeah.
And the reason why I left because she put a gun up, right?
Okay.
And basically told me, like, you know, you go either do what I say or I'm going to take you out this world type thing. I was just like, yo,
Why was she so hard?
I don't really know her father like that. And as I get older, I start to realize that you just never know what somebody went through. You know, one thing I love about my mother, she was spicy. Like she got a tongue that can cut half the world down.
I love it. So I'm raising.
Let's pause it there. Two things I said here. He said his mother at 14 decided to take a gun, right? To say, I will shoot you if you don't conform to my rules. I want to let you know what this does to a young man and how this is going to affect him and how this can affect him when he gets older. It can affect him in multiple ways, but let's take one way. One way is this, right? You are now afraid of women when you get older because of what your mother did, right? And out of fear, people can learn how to control, or they can learn to abuse, or they can learn to hurt, or they can learn to cower away, and they end up becoming a pawn to women, right? Okay, those things that can happen. The other aspect too of this is when you get older, you never want to be controlled again. And the moment you sense any control, you're very sensitive to it. You immediately eradicate the situation. You overcorrect, right? And overcorrection leads to overreaction. And so the moment somebody shows you that they are willing to try and control you at any means, it reminds you and takes you back to when your mother tried to control you with a gun. And he speaks about this, right? He speaks about how he has to protect little Jeezy. And he had to protect little Jeezy because little Jeezy couldn't stand up to his mother. In fact, let me play the clip so we can get there so you can understand where we're coming from. He said little Jeezy couldn't stand up to his mother. So what he's been doing in his life, is in a sense putting himself in a place where he's always had to fight for the little Jeezy, giving him a voice. Okay, trying to speak up for that young man, and a lot of people are there, and they end up overcorrecting and doing too much. Let's have a look at this. Listen to this. Oh my gosh, my bad, guys. We're gonna get some ads and stuff in there. Ads upon ads. Anyway, let's go.
The space to do so. And the thing for me is, when I went to visit my mother that day, I went to forgive her, but I also went to tell her that I'm gonna stand up for little Jay.
That's right.
Right. The little Jay that she put in that position. And I think a lot of my healing journey, especially in my real life, had a lot to do with me never standing up to my mother the right way.
That's right.
Which made me be a certain way in real life.
You're kind of all the things.
Now, what we're not speaking about is how that also affects you in relationships. If you couldn't stand up to your mother, I realize it's a bit wonky, isn't it? If you couldn't stand up to your mother in real life, and it was one of the hardest things to do, guess what's also going to happen in relationships? You're probably going to struggle with the voice too. and that's going to make you passively aggressive. That's going to make you, it's going to make you have probably a sharp tongue too. You're going to wait for a pylon, which is meaning having several issues come on at once, and then you're going to explode. Because if you felt like you couldn't speak up, then what's going to happen is you're going to try and correct it later on. Where you felt disenfranchised and disempowered, you try to find power elsewhere, especially in relationships. So when someone starts to replicate some of those behaviors, for instance, having a sharp tongue and being quote unquote spicy, like he said, what's going to happen is you're going to fight back. And here's a little bit of proof. Hey, why the camera? You want to fall back, brother? The camera trying to, hold on, I'm overcorrecting now. You know, the camera trying to tip. You better not. You better fall in line. Okay, so let me bring some proof to your table so that you can also see this as well, because I think this is important, right? Let's bring this to the table because Jeanni Mai speaks a bit about this situation, right?
People know this, but it's just something in my family. I've seen it in my grandmother. I'm sorry, saw it in my grandfather, to my grandmother, to my mom, to my aunts, to me, right? But I didn't notice it in myself until I was with Jeezy.
Interesting. You didn't notice in your previous marriage?
No, because it has to do with the type of relationship you have and the type of respect you have for that person to mirror things back to you where you actually would stop you in your tracks and evaluate yourself, you know?
So you had it.
So I
you
had
didn't
it, but
acknowledge it as a problem.
nobody ever called me out on it. Also in my line of work, sometimes being a boss isn't so
Let me
great
go
for
slightly
you because
back.
you have a lot of people who just agree to what you want. They're
Mhm.
yes men, right? And so I didn't notice that I had a hot temper until I got with Jeezy. And here's a person who is my equal and I really respect. And when I would spew some of my old habits, and he was like, like who? That's not flying here. And also, it would trigger him to come back at me with things where I was like, who the fuck do you think you are? But I was triggering him. So through work, we learned that we both have certain habits that to the everyday person, from friends, family, fans, they'll never see it.
Mhm.
But to the person who loves us deep enough, you can press that button and boom, the dragon comes out. And we both have it. So we had to work on that. But he never told me to fix my temper. I just saw it and I thought, unless I want to stay in this place where I lose this person I love and I stay in my comfort zone of doing what I want to do and function the way I have for the last 40 years when nobody else had to stop me.
Which obviously has done quite well for you.
Right. I could have, but this was something greater that I wanted. And also a great challenge to myself to say, what if now that I know it exists and the dragon's there, what if I got rid of that? How do I kill that dragon or store it in its place so that it never creates havoc in my life? And that took work. So for me, I think I don't want somebody.
That dragon is what's playing up in this situation, right? As you heard, and so you heard her say, like, you know, the dragon comes out, but he's also triggered and he says some things. Why? Because she reminds her of his mother. See, people marry their parents or likeness of their parents oftentimes. He married somebody whose energy was familiar, right? The energy that she was carrying is very familiar. The reason why he got with her is because she had the hot temper. The reason why he got with her because she had that sharp mouth. The reason why he got with her is because she's spicy, quote unquote, as he said, right? But the same thing that got you in is the same thing that got you out. Because you were reminded of your mother and the abuse that you suffered. You didn't realize, and that takes a bit of work, right? That takes a little bit of work where you need to start working on it. And that's why I said to you guys myself, I said, hey, I took myself out of the dating game because I don't really know that I got a catch and save him. And my catch and save him is really bad. So I took myself out of it because I'm no good to nobody. Right. And so what Jeezy and Jeanni Mai's situation happening is letting us know quite profoundly is that he's actually dating somebody, married somebody who had the same disposition that his mother had. Now, she ain't black. We're going to talk about that in another video, part 2, because we're going to talk about the fact that he dated outside his race. I'm just going to be honest with you, because he was talking about how we need to stick by each other as black people. And I'm like, brother, you didn't stick by us. Okay. You went and dated somebody outside of the race. No beef. But when you're in your lowest point, this is not the time for us to come and now say, I need my sisters. You should have had that when you're on your highest point. Okay. But let's go back to Jeezy's conversation with Nia Long. And I'll play again about this thing, because like I said, his mother's tongue was abusive. That is probably one of the biggest reasons why the relationship actually has faltered, because maybe she could not actually change that behavior in a period of time that he required or he liked in order for the relationship to actually thrive. And he probably felt like the timing that she was taking to change that behavior, it wasn't enough time. He wasn't unwilling to have the patience versus her growth period, right? And so that probably also brought the relationship closer to an end as well. Okay. I think this is interesting part as well because he speaks about his mother in this part. You know, I think there's a lot that in the first, first hour, the first like 20 or so minutes was killing it.
Or not sending her off right. One thing I learned about life now is that even if somebody treats you wrong, right? It's how you react or respond.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's been the biggest lesson for me.
And I can't look at what she did to me and then react. Right. My response is what we had. And I promise you, like I sat there and I explained to her, the things that affected me and why I couldn't connect at that moment. And that, she asked me for forgiveness, but I wanted her to forgive me. It's like we left in a gray space, right? She doesn't know how I feel. I don't know how she feels. I promise it was like this pain, like it was like somebody like stabbing you in the chest with a pitchfork or something. And it was just like hurt so bad. And when she told me that she understood, I started to feel it dissolve.
When you get to a place where you can forgive, even when there's pain involved,
right?
That's freedom.
It's so tricky because I promise you, like I'm a Libra, so I'm like a very balanced and fair person. But 99.9% of the people I've met in my life have wronged or did something that I just was like, wow. And it could be anyone from anything. So it's always just that. And I go back to that instance when I was
99.9% of the times, he's balanced, but a lot of people have done him wrong, right? That's where we're coming to boundary setting. He hasn't got good boundary setting because his mother didn't allow him to set very good boundaries because she taught him not to care about himself and not to put himself first, right? But as you heard him say, he had a pain in his heart. That's where the anger is. So he's going to talk about it later on. He has an anger, right? And what we don't talk about is the fact that when you have a pain or anger, a wound from a parent, let's say the opposite sex, for instance, his mother, right? That oftentimes shows his ugly head in the relationship because the woman now represents your mother, right? So that woman ends up becoming a representative, and some of her behaviors, you get triggered by that. You're responding actually not to her, but to your mother and what you could not correct and what you could not change. And so the as you heard him say about asking for forgiveness for his mother, and her saying, she understands where he's coming from and the pain that she's inflicted upon him, that also takes some work to undo. It takes some time. But if you've got somebody replicating that same behavior, that's going to further exasperate that process of actually healing as well. I think also what he goes on to say about, 99% of people, he's fairly balanced and but he's experienced too many people trying to take advantage of him and hurt him. That's because of the boundary setting. That's because he puts himself in positions where he lowers himself and devalues himself because of his self-esteem and wanting to help other people so badly, but for his own validation, that he actually puts himself in situations where he's not going to win and he has poor boundaries.
When I was under that cabinet, you feel what I'm saying? It's just like you feel that, and I imagine going through that, throughout your life. And that's what I have to tell people. Like, I don't think people understand that. It's like when you tell people you lost this many people, they look at it like you're exaggerating, but you got to really think about it. Let's just say Tupac. Tupac was 25, 6 when he died. Imagine how many people he lost if he ever sat down and told you, I'm double his age. I lived past him. I was just in bad shape. I got an album out that's doing well.
Yeah.
I'm going around the world. I'm at war. You know what I'm saying? I'm losing friends left and right. I'm at war with people who have, at the time, way more money than I did, more influence and power.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm just holding my own, right?
Again, under that sink.
And it's just like the same people that told me they was my brothers, now they trying to kill me. Like, imagine that, right? And this ain't like around the corner. It's a state to state, right?
Yeah,
so now I'm dealing with all this and I'm trying to navigate it. And God got me out of that again.
Look, I think it's really important for Black men and Black women to have these conversations. It's a person who's afraid of intimacy, right? Because intimacy is the trigger in which we can actually start to unpack ourselves. Are you guarded? Because you seem guarded.
Yeah, very. One thing is my relationships have been very much on the surface when I started losing a lot of people, right? Because you don't want
to. Are you talking about love relationships or homies, like people?
Homies, and then even love relationships I've been in where, people just ain't right.
You do realize.
Now, what's important about this point is that he's guarded, right? And this is very important. I talk about this as well a lot with vulnerability. The inability to be vulnerable, as actually Neil Long's about to actually state, means that you end up attracting people that also too find it very difficult to be vulnerable. You find your like person. When you're emotionally unavailable, you find people that are also emotionally unavailable because you look for water finds its level. And so it's very difficult if you've always been guarded and you've always been watching your own back and had to you can't never trust people from birth. Can't trust your mother, can't trust your father. We don't know where the dad is. Can't trust your father. Now you can't trust your boys. How would you trust a woman? No, really deep it. If you can't trust your father, your mother, and your boys, how would you trust a woman? Somebody who has the ability to kill you in your sleep, how would you trust her? You won't be able to, right? And so what will happen is you end up finding somebody who either tries to love you too much, the anxious avoidant attachment style, or you find somebody just as dismissive avoidant as you are. And what happens is this game of who's going to care less. Right. And you will never really get underneath the surface of the situation because, like he said, I kept the surface because I was guarded. I don't want no one to get close to me. Well, guess what happens? No one can get close to you. How can they love you properly? And if they can't love you properly, then it becomes a cycle because you really want to be loved, but you are unwilling to let them in. So then that person's always in a perpetual cycle of getting close, but never getting close enough. And then when they get close, you push them away because you don't want to get too close because you need to protect yourself. You can't be vulnerable. Right? So that's going to play a part in the Jeanni Mai situation because remember, her situation too is that she came from a home where her mother didn't believe that she was sexually assaulted. She ran away from home. She's been independent for a very long time. She had to make her own career. She held down her own self for a very long time. Guess what that makes you do? Can't trust others. You become this quote unquote boss beach, as she said herself. Let's play a little clip. We'll get onto her and we'll come back onto Jeezy in a second or two, right? She became this boss B word, right? She said herself, right? Let's play a little of this.
If now that I know it exists and the dragon's there, what if I got rid of that? How do I kill that dragon or store it in its place so that it
Which obviously has done quite well for you.
Right. I could have want to stay in this place where I lose this person I love and I stay in my comfort zone of doing what I want to do and function the way I have for the last 40 years when nobody else had to stop me.
Which obviously has done quite well for you.
Right. I could have. But this was something greater that I wanted. And also a great challenge to myself to say, what if now that I know it exists and the dragon's there, what if I got rid of that? How do I kill that dragon or store it in its place so that it never
makes it different? So we are just as driven to find somewhere safe to sleep at night as we are to get up in the morning and strive for something.
Yes.
So when we're in a relationship, it's an opportunity for achievement because you can learn something else. You see the world broader. You have a new circle.
That.
So we are.
When you're in a relationship, it's an opportunity for achievement.
Yes.
That is why I'm in my relationship. You just nailed it right there. What's that thing called again?
Self-expansion theory.
I'm all about the SET. That is yes. That is me. Everybody always asks, why in this relationship has it changed you? Has it made you softer and different in these different ways? And of course he's a great man, but what is it beyond his looks or his accolades that make me so attracted to this relationship and working for it? Like actually working for it, like changing myself, growing, doing things. It's the ability to achieve. It makes me actually like myself more.
I want to say something that someone said.
Now, if you didn't hear it, I wanted to play a little bit extended because I wanted to play a bit further on as well. What you would have heard her say before that, actually, and I apologize, I should have played that extra part of the clip where she talks about she's a boss. She's been a boss and no one told her what to do basically for a very long time. For 40 years, she hasn't had to change. She's been the way she has to be, right? And that becomes very difficult in a relationship because if you've always done what you ever wanted to do, how do people tell you anything different? And I think also that comes into a place because she's also quite an independent person. He can't control her. And never can she control him, which is what they both wanted because that's where they've come from, places where they've been disenfranchised and disempowered and not been able to control their environment. So clearly there's going to be a clash of titans in this relationship, right? Who's going to give in first? Who's going to want to give up control first? And in what way? And are they going to be comfortable giving up that particular power in the relationship? That's another conversation of another situation. Let's go back to the Jeezy situation. I want to play another clip for you guys as well, because he went on to say about, his mother and standing up to his mother. You might have heard that clip I played earlier on, but we're going to play it again so you get to understand what
To my mother that day, I went to forgive her, but I also went to tell her that I'm going to stand up for little Jay.
That's right.
Right, the little Jay that she put in that position. And I think a lot of my hidden journey, especially in my real life, had a lot to do with me never standing up to my mother the right way.
That's right.
Which made me be a certain way in real life.
You're kind of all the things.
Right. It's all
Not being able to stand up to your mother is going to make you want to stand up in a relationship. I'm telling you. Or the other way, you go the complete opposite way. You have cowardice and you go literally the other way, right? So not being able to stand up to your mother, any energy that's going to represent what you experienced in your past, similar to what your mother is, you're going to nuke it. I believe this is one of the biggest reasons why himself and Jeanni Mai have actually broken up and are divorced, and why he can't go back, because he refuses to be able to allow his mother to do what he did again through Jeanni Mai. He refuses, right? So that is like a no-go. That's why it's so like, that's why it's not the cheating aspect. It's what she's done, right? And what she's doing and who she is. He refuses to go back, right? That dragon that she speaks about, that's what he's talking about. Okay? That's what he's talking about. You know, and it's interesting because I watched another video of Jeanni Mai, and she spoke about the fact that her and Jeezy have gone through similar instances, and that's where they bond. I believe there's a lot of bond. I believe there was some bonding over trauma, over their younger inner self, and not in their inability to protect their younger selves. As he spoke about the younger boy, Jeanni Mai on another video speaks about this, and I wish I had pulled it up, and I would have presented the evidence for you. She speaks about this, how she was unable to protect her younger self, and how she had to have a journey of being able to love the younger self, because her younger self was also hiding somewhere, because she had also gone through sexual trauma at a young age. Right. And he too speaks about this. He had gone through sexual trauma at a very young age. I believe they bonded over trauma, and this should have been a great friendship, but shouldn't have progressed to a relationship unless they had done the work separately. Right. Because that's what's pulled them apart now. Okay. All right. So in that instance, you know, that younger inner child that he speaks about, that person is also what's going to drive the future relationship in the direction it is. How much healing have we done? Now, the part I want to also question, and my time is almost up now, so I want to get it there quickly, is questioning of leadership, right? Because you've heard Jeanni Mai talk about how she, you know, has done her own thing for a very long time. But one of the things that was also interesting is about leadership and the way that it presents itself. I want you to watch this, right? Jeezy's no fool. He knows exactly what he's saying. Listen to this.
Like this with any man.
Oh, wow.
So for you to say the words but still have this very masculine presence is kind of nice, because it's like it goes against what I think women will be like, he's soft, I don't want, you know, because there are women out there that don't want that, which
1000%.
I don't understand that. I think you want the balance, right? I think women want leadership. They want to feel protected.
Do they want leadership?
Well, it depends on the woman.
Right, yes.
Depends on the woman, right? And it depends on where you're leading me, because if you're leading me someplace where I don't want to go, then no, we're not doing that.
Now, the fact that he questioned it is so interesting. Do women want leadership? Why would he question that? You know women want leadership. Oh, unless subconsciously what you actually responded to was you talking about your past relationship. Now, it could be a bit of a reach. I don't think it is. I think he generally was responding in a way that do women, he's questioning it, because remember, the kind of leadership he's experienced from his mother was abusive. Right. And then you end up, then you're in a marriage, and of course he's been in other relationships, and you're in a marriage similarly enough with somebody who's so headstrong, which you love because that's what your mother was, strong, independent, held her own. You love that energy. But the part where you don't like is the fact that you can't lead in that area because she won't allow you to. Why? Because she believes that she can lead herself. So in a relationship, you ain't going to have that easy way of leading her, but you chose her because the trauma was speaking to her. You chose what was familiar to you, and you need help seeing a different picture of how a woman can complement you in a relationship, right? And so that leadership where you've not seen before in a marriage, in a relationship from your parents, right? You're striving for that, but you don't know how it should look because inevitably you've never seen it before. And so you go for what's familiar. That's Jeanni Mai, the independent, self-acclaimed, accomplished woman. But unfortunately, she won't follow your lead the same way. That's why he ended up going like this after, like, really, they want leadership. He's asked that question, really, they want leadership? Because he's questioning it from a perspective of you've been through. Okay? All right? And I want to you know, end it there. I want to end it there because he spoke about, obviously they went to him and Jeanni Mai went to therapy, and they went through the counselor and stuff. And I want to say this, like, even if you go to therapy, the difficulty behind the situation is that if behavior hasn't changed in a particular time scale that you want or they want, that's where people can get frustrated. If they're not seeing a change of behavior quickly enough, they can feel like, you know what, you're not really trying. Do you really care? Are you capable? And that's a real question. Are you capable? Right? Because in what he speaks about is that in that situation, he had to put himself first. Why does he have to put himself first? What's he talking about? Well, in reality, he feels like he hasn't put himself first in the past. And in this relationship, he said God helped him put himself first. You mean you chose wrong? We don't need to put God in this situation. You know what I mean? I feel like we need to stop doing that, putting God in situations that God never called you to, right? Oh, God wanted me to put myself first. No. You believe you need to put yourself first. And maybe you're right. You do need to put yourself first. And that's why the relationship's broken down. But don't put God in it. Don't put God in it. You chose that woman because you wanted to have that woman. You have free will and you chose it. And unfortunately, it's a wrong choice. And now you've come out of it. You realize you were wrong because this relationship did not fulfill what you needed. There were things in there that were happening that were re-triggering you. Leadership, abusive behavior, the dragon, whatever you want to call it, spicy. And unfortunately, it's got to a place where you cannot take it no longer. That's fair. Right? So make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification uploads. We appreciate you guys. Stay locked, so that we'll see you again.